All right, so we are just slowly letting people in. As you're coming into the webinar, if you want to just take a minute to familiarize yourselves with the information at the bottom, if you haven't been in a Zoho webinar before, you should have a little Q&A option. The Q&A looks like a little bubble with a question mark. You can go ahead throughout the webinar and use that to submit any questions that you have for our presenter. We'll do our best to get them all answered during the webinar, and any questions that are not answered, we will kind of document and we will send out after the webinar. So we will give a couple of minutes for people to get into the webinar. We're right on time and we've got quite a few people already here. So welcome everyone who got here earlier on time. Yeah. I will do another intro, but for those of you who are already here, Jem Payne is speaking to us today from Breeze Management, and I'll do a formal intro in just a minute here while we let a couple more welcome. So please hold. All right. Okay, so I know Jem's got a fully packed agenda for us, and I would like to have time for some questions at the end. So I will give a little intro here. So Jem has been in this business for over a decade. Breeze Business Management offers accounting and monthly reporting that provide vital insights to business performance. Her business empowers business owners to comprehend their operations and achieve their objectives. Their expertise lies in supporting entrepreneurs and business owners experiencing rapid growth and needing reliable accounting services to help them make informed management decisions, which I think is so key. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Jem. I'm going to turn off my microphone and my video so you can focus just on her. And if you have questions that come up along the way, again, please submit them through that little Q&A section and we'll make sure we get to them. So without further ado, take it away, Jem.
Awesome. I'm so excited. I can't believe people want to spend their lunchtime talking about accounting. I'm here for it. And yes, I have a jam-packed agenda here, but most importantly, I'm going to be sharing my candid insights over a decade in this industry, not only as a bookkeeping expert, but also just as an entrepreneur who has been navigating the challenges of accounting for a while. So I'm going to just start with my journey into accounting, which is not typical. I was a singer-songwriter before I got into Breeze Business Management. I was pursuing an arts career in Toronto, Ontario. I'm originally from Huntsville, Ontario, which is 2.5 hours north. And we relocated to Saskatchewan about 2.5 years ago. We love it here. And my journey into accounting started with failure. I failed at budgeting when I had a really awesome opportunity to expand my business. My business was singing and songwriting, and I got a load of money handed to me as an independent artist, and I squandered it because I was 22 and I didn't know how to budget properly, and I didn't know what was expected of me, and my team kind of fell apart, and it was a really educational experience. And when I handed that money back to the granting body, sadly, I immediately enrolled myself into a computerized accounting program. I knew that I would not succeed at whatever I was going to do next if I couldn't manage money and if I couldn't figure out what was expected of me and never have to return funds again. So Breeze Business Management came out of my experience working with a business management and accounting firm in Toronto for millionaire musicians. I was shocked at how many people were behind just one little artist. And by little artist, I mean big artist, but just one person, you know, doing a tour, or doing merch. And it really opened my eyes to the amount of administrative support that is required to support business owners. And I decided to leave Toronto, move back to Muskoka. I worked for a electrical contracting company, and I kind of just reshifted how I was supporting business owners. Instead of just supporting artists, I started moving into the trades. I started moving into other industries, and that's how Breeze Business Management was born. And we're still kicking, we're growing, and we got lots to talk about. So agenda for this hour, I just want to go over what is bookkeeping. That is going to be the only definition I do because Google can do all of this for you. So I really want to focus on like my tips and tricks. I am a QuickBooks Online Pro advisor, but I'm trying not to focus too much on software because I know that there are lots of softwares out there. Sometimes people use Excel, sometimes people use paper. There's so many. So I'm not focused on QuickBooks Online right now. If West wants to do a QBO, webinar, we can do that another time. So I'm just going to go over these key areas, and my goal is to empower you. So it is not to sell you accounting services. I'm not interested in selling you accounting services right now. I'm interested in you leaving this webinar feeling like, okay, I can do this. I know what I need to do. I've got these links that I'm going to click on, and I'm going to get myself organized. The goal for me is for you to feel good about managing your own accounting. And then if you decide later in the future, okay, I know what I'm doing and I don't want to do it, that's where you can reach out to me, or there's several amazing bookkeepers in Saskatchewan, even through the West Network, that would be just delighted to help you. So that is my goal for you. So the process of recording and organizing financial transactions, that's bookkeeping. Okay, it's pretty simple, but there is a lot of confusion between accountants and bookkeepers. So for me, the simplest way to view it is an accountant is someone you reach out to once a year. A bookkeeper is someone you reach out to once a week, depending on how you structure your relationship with your bookkeeper, or maybe you're the bookkeeper. So, whatever, new point. But bookkeepers are focused on the minutia. It is the dollars and cents. They're kind of like coloring within the lines of the picture. And the accountant is taking a broader and higher level view, and they're offering guidance. So, I love accountants. I am not a CPA, and we work very closely with dozens of accountants across Canada. And it's one of those really serendipitous relationships where I get a ton of referrals from them, and then I get insights into what they charge clients so that I can present the best options to my clients. So aside from, the key differences between those two, first of all, you have to bookkeep. You have legal compliance and tax obligations. Whether you're a sole proprietor or a corporation, you have obligations. Of course, corporations do have some more obligations than sole proprietorships. The CRA views corporations as a separate legal entity. So different tax returns, you got a T1 and a T2 versus sole proprietorship, which is just one taxable entity. But aside from that, what's really exciting about bookkeeping is when you are so organized that you can use it to guide you. And that's what business performance tracking is all about, and making decisions based on the numbers, not how you're feeling in that moment. So who is ultimately responsible? I just pulled this straight from the CRA. You are ultimately responsible, the business owner, assuming I am speaking to you, the business owner. If you are a bookkeeper helping a client, okay, they're ultimately responsible. So it doesn't matter whether or not you subcontract this out. At the end of the day, you as the business owner are responsible. So it's so important that you know what you're responsible for, and then decide to subcontract it out if you want to do that. One of the key things I just wanted to mention, accountants, they often give you this notice to reader, right? When they're doing your corporate tax return. This notice to reader statement is basically just saying we didn't undergo any tests and the accountant prepared these off of what was provided by the client. So that's just like a fancy way to say, hey, we just did the tax return based on what the client told us, and the responsibility lives with you. Okay, so now we're going to focus on some key areas. Record keeping. So this is the foundation of good bookkeeping. I've got some tips over the many years that I've done this, especially as we've moved to a more digital platform, Google Drive, other things like that. I use Google Drive. So consistent naming conventions. By that, I mean, it is so easy to clutter your digital space. And it doesn't matter what your naming convention is, but you should pick one and be consistent. So mine, for example, is month, day, year, underscore, client name, underscore, purpose of document. So when you are putting receipts into your Google Drive or, correspondence into your Google Drive, do yourself a favor and just rename it. Take the 2 seconds to rename it, especially when you're searching for something later. Maybe you're searching for like marketing assets, or you're looking for like some sort of social media post you had prepared. If you've got different versions of that going, at least that date is really going to help you. Understanding the audit trail. So I've been a part of many CRA audits. Basically, you start with a spot audit and you move on to a full-blown audit, hopefully not. But the spot audit's really simple. They want to see your bank statement and they want to see how it corresponds with your ledgers or your record keeping, right? So what you need to do is you need to understand the audit trail. The audit trail is basically like everything that happens up to that transaction. So it's the information needed to recreate a sequence of events related to a business transaction. Now, this can be pretty complicated when you start getting into e-commerce like Stripe and other payment processors, Square, whatever. That's because they actually often take fees right at the source. So money that hits your bank account is net of the fees. So if you aren't aware of what's going on in your actual e-commerce platform, it's really easy for those things not quite, they don't jive. So it's important when you're setting up those platforms, maybe you don't have the head for it, maybe you don't have the time for it, but then hire someone to just get the right routine from e-commerce to your accounting system, whatever it is. And go straight to the source. That's always my recommendation with accounting. There's a lot of opinions out there, including mine, which I'm spewing at you right now. The source is the CRA and the governing bodies that we have to report to. So if you have a question, call them up, get someone on the phone. However, I would also recommend if you decide to call the CRA, what they're going to do is they're going to, tell you something, but it's very easy to forget it. Or, it's a conversation you had with them is not really going to stand up if there's an issue with the CRA later. So what I recommend doing and what I do when I call the CRA, I say, hey, here's my problem. Here's my question. Can you please direct me? I am currently on your website to where I can find the information. That allows you to download that information, rename it, track it, whatever you need to do. But those, it's really important to know that like accountants have opinions, bookkeepers have opinions, other business owners have opinions. The CRA is ultimately who we report to. I also have a very healthy fear of the CRA. When I was at the business management and accounting firm, we had a desk set aside for the CRA auditing agent. So I just have a very unique perspective on respecting their authority. So that makes me particularly weird, but that's fine. So another thing I wanted to mention, if you're not currently using a software discounts exist out there. Oftentimes it will be when you sign up, right? They go, oh, 6 months at $8 a month or whatever. And then it switches to its typical pricing. They do that because it's very hard to switch accounting softwares. There's a lot of obstacles. It takes a lot of perseverance to transfer the history of your business from one software to another. So I recommend that you find someone who has some sort of relationship with these softwares. They get discounts and they often love giving you a discount. So I know Breeze Business Management, we get 50% off of QuickBooks Online base subscriptions, not payroll. And we extend that to all of our clients at full discount. We give it to them at cost. It's not part of my business to make money off of the software subscriptions of Intuit. So find someone like that who's gonna like give you that discount to just like help you out, because I know that software can be quite expensive. Bank reconciliations. Okay, this is so important because it ensures your records match your bank statements, which helps identify errors or fraud. But like I was saying with spot audits, this is where the CRA wants to see the PDF of your bank statement. And they want to go to line this that has this transaction date and this description and that amount, and they want to see that in your ledger. That's kind of, it's almost like forensic accounting style, where like they want to see how your ledgers match your bank account. And if there's a discrepancy, that's an issue. So my tips for bank reconciliations: one, like save your statements in PDF form. Even if you're printing them off, save a copy in PDF. Not only will your accountant need it at year end, especially the one that crosses year end or ends on year end, but it's just good to have them in a folder. Put them in your Google Drive, name them properly, store them away, protect the drive, whatever you need to do. But you don't want to have to keep going back to online banking and downloading them again and whatnot. So save them in PDF form. Who is your business advisor? Because this is one of the tips that I learned at the management firm in Toronto. We had a great relationship with our, bank. Our office was above the bank, and we would walk down every single day, and we would talk to the ladies and the men, and we'd drop off the, little forms, and then we'd go on with our day. Creating a relationship with your business advisor is something that a lot of people don't do, and I don't understand why. I email the bank reps of my clients almost, I'd say every 4 days, let's say, asking them for something. Like, that's their job. They're your business advisor. So if you've got statements that, start on the 3rd of the month, and another credit card statement that's on the 15th of the month, and another savings account statement that's on the 6th of the month, email your advisor and just say, hey, I need all these statements for all of these accounts to be on the same day. That will make your reconciliation life a lot easier and allow you to create this recurring calendar reminder where when your bank account is going to issue your statements. You can put it in your calendar, you go on there, download your statements, put them in your drive, hand them to your bookkeeper, do whatever you need to do. So just like lunch, do not skip this. Reconciliations are so important, but be cautious of the feeling of reconciling. Okay, the feeling of reconciling is when you click, 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 and it says it reconciles. There's no issues. You've done it perfectly when using the software. Things can reconcile and still be very, very wrong. So if you are using a software, some of my tips: there's often sorting functions. So like you'll typically be looking at a bank reconciliation screen, dates, description, amounts, little check marks that you can click off. Okay. Oftentimes, these softwares will allow you to click on the column headers so that you can sort. So I recommend sorting things in a couple of different ways while you're doing your reconciliations. I sort first by description so that I can see, okay, every time I'm at Tim Hortons, it's this, or, okay, Staples, yep, I can consistently see that it's being coded as this. It can help you just get in the habit of making sure that your assignments are consistent, which can really help. And also just be wary of the auto reconciliations. A lot of the cloud accounting now is quite progressive, and what they do is they'll help you out. If you've clicked something through the bank feed, then it automatically shows up as ticked off in your reconciliation screen. That's not always helpful. I really, really, really recommend just whatever they've clicked off, unclick it. There's usually a master button, and start. Just look at your statement, look at your screen, make sure everything looks good. Also, if you're noticing that your software is not using payee names or customer names, that's a red flag. You really do want to use those those functions so that you can create reports that are useful to you. If you know how much you're spending at X, then maybe you have some leverage for getting a better deal from that supplier. We're going to talk about that next. But one of the key things that often happens with business owners is a bookkeeper or accountant will ask for a bank statement, and they will get they'll print off monthly activity. That's basically just like going onto your browser, upper right-hand corner, print. An official bank statement, should have your business name, your business address, your account number, your starting balance, your ending balance. You should be able to get those online. If you're not registered for online banking, I highly recommend doing that. I'm assuming you all are, because we're all using an online platform that's more complicated than that. So reconciliations, yes, very important. And don't skip it. Anything that is not reconciling, repair it right away. Look into it right away. For softwares, there's so many reasons why things don't balance. If you're using Excel, if a lot of business owners still use Excel or Google Sheets, and if you're doing your reconciliations just in Google Sheets, there's a really easy tip. One, you can go onto your online banking, download your data, right? All of your data, which you should be able to do in spreadsheet or CSV form, import it into your Google Sheets or Excel. Then put your starting balance in a new column and your ending balance at the bottom of your activity, and do a running balance calculation. If it doesn't match, then you got an issue. So it is possible to do reconciliation styles outside of the typical softwares. It just takes a little bit more effort, I would say. Okay, expense tracking. So this is, the typical. We have lots of expenses, lots of bills comes in, lots of invoices from suppliers come in, and as entrepreneurs, we often will have a business bank account. Hopefully, some business owners, don't, and they have a personal bank account that they use for business, or more commonly, a personal credit card that they use for business. So in that case, I really recommend separating as much as you can, even if you're a sole proprietorship. If you're a sole proprietorship, I know that you're, one taxable entity and it's all in the same tax return. But if you ever want to get the assistance of someone else, a bookkeeper, an assistant, whatever, it's going to be a lot easier if you have some privacy in your life, and separating out those transactions is really important. So there's lots of deals on business bank accounts. I know that, there's so many, and they're cheap. My bank account's $5 a month with RBC, like smart banking or easy banking. And so it is worth the extra cash just to have separation as you hopefully are growing your business. A lot of business owners still using petty cash, nothing wrong with that, but just removing, ATM deposit, $200, miscellaneous, it's not going to fly with the CRA, and it's not correct for your audit trail and whatnot. So you need to have an additional log. If you take $400 out of the bank and you know that you're buying some supplies with that and some gas with that, whatever you're doing with your cash, you need to create a log of it. And that log is what is part of your audit trail. And really that log is your journal entry of allocations. It's not the petty cash, the $400 leaving your bank account. It's the activity that makes up what you use that money on. So it's really simple. Just go on to Google Sheets, date, description, amount. Okay, it's not hard. Keep your receipts in a shoebox if you have to. But having a petty cash log is really important. I see a lot of times business owners ATM withdrawals, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, that was for a bunch of materials," and I'm like, "Cool, send the receipts." Like it's not that hard. Um, Going back to the power of reports by supplier name, you would not believe how many in the trades times that we've been able to provide reports to our clients like, hey, this is, I'm going to use some Ontario names. Hey, like, we noticed that you spent, 80% more at Westburn than Nedco. Why don't you go to them and say, hey, we're spending a lot of money here. What can you do for us? That's something that you wouldn't be able to do if you didn't code your transactions by payee, if you didn't track that at all. So just like developing relationships, even identifying who your key suppliers are is really, really helpful when determining, are you going to stick with them? Are you going to shop around? Can you go to them and say, hey, we love working with you. And this year we spent 15 grand at your store. Is there anything you can do for us to help us continue this relationship? It's worth an ask. So software, there's lots of softwares out there that can assist you in expense tracking. I'm sure some of you are using them. If you're using QuickBooks, then there's you can send your receipts in via the app or via an email. There's lots of others. HubDoc, I think, is another one where it will take the PDFs and stuff from your email and bring it into the system. Yes, AI and computerized systems are getting smarter. They can decipher dates, description amounts, and they do a pretty good job on it. However, the world has not agreed on a date format. So there's often, transactions that are day, month, year, or month, day, year. And it can create a lot of confusion. At the end of the day, the software can assist you, but you are the one that has to go approved. So you still have to look at it. So it's one of those questions over is this process that I have developed really helping me? Is there a better way to do this? Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to put your eyes on that. And don't auto add stuff through software if you're doing that. It's not worth it. There's a lot of errors that come that way. Take that extra time to just review and send it along. And then lastly, mileage logs. This is if you're traveling a lot. The CRA has a standard rate for what you can calculate. One of my best tips for mileage logs is it is incredibly challenging in my personal experience to remember to track your mileage. I tried lots of things. I tried apps. I tried a piece of paper. I tried text to myself. The CRA is pretty specific on what they need. They need the date, the purpose of the travel, starting kilometers, ending kilometers, starting location, ending location, and then the kilometers, right? So my tip for mileage logs, if you are struggling with not capturing all of your business travel, put a sticky note on your dashboard. It lives there now. And when you get into the car and it says, is this a business trip or am I tracking mileage right now? That should mentally go, oh, right. Okay, I got to pull up my phone and start my tracking. What I did is I had a notebook. The notebook took up the whole dashboard of my car so that when I got in, I couldn't even see, the odometer or whatever. And I'd go, oh, right. Okay. Yeah. And I did my work. Did I ultimately regret doing that? Yes, because then I had to manually key in all of this kilometer differences so that I could tell to my accountant, hey, here are my mileage logs. But it was the only way I was going to track it. I was not an app person at that time. So there's some behavioral aspects of accounting that are worth discussing. Oops, I did it again. Using personal funds for business expenses or personal credit for business expenses. There is a correct process for that, especially in corporations. It's basically like a monthly reimbursement sheet. So what you should do is you should just create another sheet. Excel's a great option. Google Sheets is a great option. You're just going to have the month, the date, the receipt log. So date, description, amount, and then your signature printed out, e-signature, whatever, especially for corporations, right? This is going to affect your shareholder account, and you want to make sure that this is done correctly. So reimbursing yourself is really easy when you do make that mistake, but making sure that you have that audit trail and that backup, really, really important. Invoicing and accounts receivable. Okay, the lifeblood of a business. AR is so incredibly important, and you need to be on top of this because you can do all of the work in the world, but if your clients don't pay you, you're not going to make it. So I learned this the really hard way in 2023. My company in particular really struggled with collections, and I spent a lot of time digging into how can I fix this. So here are my tips for that. One, very clear payment terms. Not only should your invoices say on it your payment terms, it should be highlighted, it should be bolded, and I'm going to provide to you what the lawyers say on the next slide. That should help you. I also do not recommend doing net 30. I know it's very common to say net 30, but my mentor and longtime advisor taught me when I was 16 that I needed to say due on receipt. That's very clear that I am not extending you credit. My business is not extending your business credit at all, not at all. Payments due on receipt. So if you use that language, recognizing that, yeah, they're probably going to take 30 days to pay, right? That's just part of your collections process, but your invoices are really crystal clear. It's due on receipt. Even better if you can move to retainer, right? Not everyone can do that, obviously. Services are one of the places where that's most common, but if you're running a different business, deposits incredibly important. I mean, I could talk forever on this. I'm going to just keep moving along. The power of a third party. So what I mean by this is it is very hard as an entrepreneur, business person who is trying to maintain positive relationships to be that aggressive, like, hey, give me money or I'm not going to work anymore kind of person. I personally found, not anymore, I found it really challenging because I was trying to maintain that relationship. I was the customer service person. I want them to like me, but I also need them to pay me. So one of the things that we implemented quite early is a third party ominous relationship. By this I mean we opened up a accounting email, and that accounting email is what sends the invoices, what sends the payment reminders, what sends the collections notice. It does all of these like hard conversations that are just template, really clear language, no emotion, robotic. They were the third party for me. And when we send those emails, it's not signed Gem because, I mean, it might be me sending it, but it's not me sending it. And a lot of times you can use that tactic when dealing with reminders. If you're uncomfortable with making a reminder because, it's a delicate relationship, just say in your email, this is an automated reminder. It might not be, but make it an automated reminder. And then when that client, comes to you pissed off about something, you can say, oh, it's the software. So sorry, but yeah, can you pay? So there's lots of like behavioral stuff that works with accounts receivable. Invoice numbers, just kind of a simple one. Like each year, I would recommend changing your invoice number sequence. Just makes it easier for storing things electronically if you're doing it that way, or when you're keeping things organized in folders, whichever way you do it. Doesn't matter what your invoice number sequence are, but I would recommend like at the end of the year, you've got your cutoff number, and then you start with a brand new number, a brand new sequence of numbers. And by that, I mean like, I don't even necessarily mean like, okay, year one's going to be invoices 1 to 100. Year two is going to be 2 to 200. It's like, no, next year is going to be 3,000 to 4,000. Like just keeping a lot of differences in the years just for tracking reasons can be really helpful. Collection agency tactics. We have worked with the collections agencies before, in particular with the trades. It is a aggressive tactic, but I have learned a lot from them. We have a relationship with Dixon Collections, which is a very old cross-Canada agency. And we do get preferential pricing, so let me know if you need that. But some of their tactics are interesting. So one of the things that they do is they provide to their clients envelopes and stickers, and the stickers just go right on here saying collection notice, and it's red and it's mailed. And you do that after you've tried everything else. You've tried calling them, you've tried emailing them, you can't get through to them. Then you send them mail, right? You could send them registered mail, or you can send them a collections notice. Basically, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create an audit trail of your efforts to collect. The reasons to do that are because when you decide that you can't collect that and you need to expense it to bad debts or uncollectible, invoices, you want to be able to say to the CRA, I made best efforts. I called them on this day. I emailed them on this day. I didn't hear back. I sent them mail. I sent them a collection notice. And, maybe you have sent them to collections. But at that point, you can still write it off in your books. And then if you do collect, then you bring it back in. So it's one of those things that, could be tax advantageous depending on where you're at in your year. But for collection agencies, it's important to tell clients pretty early that you do intend to collect, not as a threat, but as a we collect on our invoices, and collection agencies typically won't collect on invoices under $300. So if they collect an invoice that's under $300, you just get that money. Great. You're probably not going to see that client again, but do you really want them as a client anyways if they're not going to pay you? And then the commissions can work up to 10 or 15%, which honestly, better than nothing in my opinion. But that's really up to you, the business owner, and how your relationship with the clients work. What I did personally, I sent out a collections notice reminder to all of my clients. It was a one-page PDF, and it just expressed to them, hey, we've been working together for a long time. I just want you to know that accounting doesn't have a lot of assets. I can't just go to the bank and get this major loan to cover the fact that you're not paying me. I don't have equipment that I could leverage for that. I don't have a truck. It's very hard for me to get credit. Not technically true, but my point was it's not hard for me, or it is hard for me to get credit. So I can't extend credit to you. So from this point forward, this is how this relationship is going to work. We're going to take a retainer. We're going to continue to bill you. You're going to pay the difference if there is one. We're going to communicate things clearly to you. And if you're 30 days late, you will get this reminder. If you're 60 days late, you will get this reminder. Hopefully you don't get to 90 days late, because that's when we send you to collections, and we really don't want to do that. We want to work with you. So just being really clear about your collection strategy to your clients will make your life a lot easier. Just for those who are sales tax registered, whether or not that is PST or GST, you have to show that number on your invoice and receipts. You have to show the rate that applies on your receipts and your invoice. And if you are working with a new supplier who you've never worked with before, I recommend looking them up on the registry, which is a free service. You can just literally type that in, but I think I have a link for you later. And it will help you out in terms of is that person registered? Because it's actually on you to determine whether or not that person is registered, because it seems a little backwards, but it's your responsibility. So you can't claim the input tax credit on your GST return or PST return if they're not registered. So do that extra little step. Just make sure that they're registered. There's also a friendly CRA calculator for if you're struggling sometimes with the software, with the math. There's a calculator. It's so easy to use. I use it all the time. Just double check that, sometimes you've been looking at the screen for too long. So that link's in the end as well. Here is the language from the lawyers. This is what they say. Payment due within 30 days of invoice. invoice date. Interest at the rate of 5.3% annum will be charged on all amounts not paid within 30 days of invoice date. So interesting, the lawyers don't say due on receipt, but whatever. The point is, make it very clear and charge people interest. Okay, why shouldn't you? You're not a bank, but they're treating you like one. So I do recommend, and if you need a interest calculator, there's lots of them online. I have a spreadsheet as well if you'd like it. Okay, tax preparation. So this is year-end stuff. So there's some things that are always going to be needed by the accountant at year-end. Why not reach out to them? Ask them. If they haven't already provided you a list, ask for a list nice and early. Say, hey, what are you going to need from me at year-end if you don't already know? Then I would recommend printing that puppy off, sticking it on your wall, and it just lives there now. And you can make sure that you are prepared for year-end. The sooner that you can get your year-end done, the better. It avoids penalties. If you're a corporate client, it's kind of confusing, but you have 6 months to file your corporate return, but you've got 4 months to pay if you owe money. So kind of want to file before that 6 months in case you owe money, because then they're going to charge you penalties and interest. It's very strange. But just making sure you're aware of those deadlines, and just visually, I'm a visual person, putting that up. It's like, okay, this is what they need from me. Assets over $500. We see this a lot where business owners will buy something and they'll expense it as materials or equipment. And they're like, oh, I got a brand new computer. I'm going to put that to office supplies. Nope, that is an asset. It depreciates. So it's either a depreciation that is done by your accountant, or if you're doing your own depreciation, there's a straight line depreciation, very simple, that you can set up. But make sure you have all of your receipts for purchases that are over, I would say, $500. And then if the accountant can make a judgment call on like, we'll accelerate depreciate that, which means you can expense a larger portion of it. I also recommend having an asset tracker. So by that, again, another CRA compliance piece where you need to have like the date that you purchased it, the name of the product, the description, the serial number, the amount, where that asset is. And then there's also lots of mind-numbing things like what's its salvage value and blah, blah, blah. But I recommend having that tracker. Again, you can just have that in an Excel spreadsheet where you're aware of what you currently have and the serial numbers in particular. Mileage logs, again, get those to the accountant nice and early as soon as your year end's done. Make sure you get that, ending kilometers of your vehicle. That's one of the things that often goes to the accountant last in our experience. Very strange, but it's very easy to forget about it. So just get it done nice and early. AR and AP balances, it's very common for business owners to just say, they hand over their books, or the bookkeeper hands over their books, and the AR balance is 10 grand. And what the accountant does is they put in accounts receivable on the tax return 10 grand. And then later, when you are, looking at things in your books, you're like, wait, who is that from? Or what did I need? Or was that part of the 10 grand that they owed me last year? Like, it can be very confusing. Do the extra effort of making that by customer or by supplier. So not only is it 10 grand, but it's John owes me 5, Susie owes me 1, blah, blah, blah. You want to make sure it's really clear that you've got those balances by customer/supplier. Chart of accounts is another really big thing where people have a hard time deciding the categories that they're going to use for tracking their expenses and revenue. You can, especially with softwares on the market, they let you do whatever the heck you want to do for the most part, which is one of my personal beefs with them. But the point is, at the end of the day, this all renders down to the tax return. So if you're having doubts about what your category should be, look at the statement of business and professional activity, which I'm going to give you a link for. That's for sole proprietors. If you are a corporation, look at GIFI codes. That's going to tell you how the accountants end up filing with the CRA. So they end up doing these groupings of things where you've got office supplies and you've got cleaning office supplies and you've got Office Inc. I don't know. I'm making it up. But the point is, you can bulk out your chart of accounts and get lost in it. But at the end of the day, it all renders down to what the CRA wants from you. So if you're having doubts, go look at those categories that the CRA expects from you and then determine, okay, I'll make these accounts feed into that, or, just structure it that way. The horrors of unlocked books is my personal nightmare. Locking your books is something that needs to be done. You can soft lock them, you can hard lock them. This is if you're using a software. If you're not using a software, make sure you protect your sheets, right? You're done at the end of the year. You right click, you protect. Protect it with a password. You want to make sure, for audit reasons and also just keeping things really crystal clear, that things aren't changing after year end. I can't believe I'm running out of time. We're moving on. Also, CRA My Business account. If you don't have it already, you need it. You need to go get that after this meeting. You need to start the process. They typically mail you something, so it takes a little bit of time, but you really need access to this account if you don't already have it. So, when to hire a bookkeeper? Fortunately, these slides are quick. Stress is usually the cause. Maybe you have lack of time or overwhelm. Maybe your file's just getting too complex. Maybe you've got errors and consistent errors and inconsistencies in your files, and maybe you've got tax issues. So a lot of these reasons are reasons why you should look at outsourcing. Where do you find someone? Well, WESC members can help you. Also, chamber members, if you're part of chambers, other online platforms, referrals. 60% of my business comes from referrals, hands down. So ask fellow business owners who they're using. Ask them if they have any recommendations. And then also software networks. Lots of these platforms actually are designed for the pro advisor to sell you software. That's their bag. So that means that they often have marketplaces where they can find a pro advisor near you. So that's something that you can look for as well. What to look for? Okay, do they have the right certifications and experience relevant to your industry? You can just straight up ask them that. Hey, what's your experience working in blank? Check reviews, ask for references, check the Better Business Bureau. Also, check it incognito mode, check it through DuckDuckGo, check it through not just Google, check Reddit. Like, there are so many places where you can check the reputation of people, and it's really important because your bookkeeper is going to know the intimate details of your business. You want to make sure that they are of the utmost quality, the highest quality. Software proficiency, a lot of bookkeepers will just stick with the softwares that they know. That's something that they prefer to do. It's not a jack of all trades for them. So Breeze Business Management, we use QuickBooks Online and we use Breeze Accounting Club. Those are the softwares that we use. So make sure that if you're using a particular software, you're finding someone who has experience with that software. You don't want to pay someone to learn new software. You want to pay them, you want to pay an expert, you want to pay a professional who already knows what they're doing. And then communication skills. Make sure that they can explain things to you in a way that doesn't make you feel stupid. Okay. Again, this is someone that you are going to be working closely with. You need to have a relationship where you can communicate effectively. Questions to ask them. How long have you been bookkeeping? What specific services do you offer? How do you structure your fees? What is their availability and turnaround for tasks? Here's my hot tip. Usually you can ask a bookkeeper to review your file. So we do that a lot. We call it the QBO soft audit. It's a couple $100. We pop in. It's basically like going behind the wall in an the electrical room and looking and making sure you're looking for the problem areas and asking them to do a review of your file before committing to working with them long time is a great investment, because first of all, you can see how do they communicate with you? How thorough are they? Are they compatible with you? Do they speak to you with respect? Do they seem to know what they're talking about? And how quick are they? So that's a really good use of your money before you get in bed with a bookkeeper, in my opinion. Now, can I afford it? I did this because I simply must. Math. So if you are looking at hiring a bookkeeper, what I like to do is like to do financial models. Can I afford this? Okay. If you're making 75 grand a year gross and you want to hire a bookkeeper who's going to charge you 3 grand a year, can you grow by 250 bucks a month to afford them? By that, I mean, how do we get that break even point where you can outsource this task that you may hate and focus on growing your business, which you may love, and break even on that? So, and is it worth it? Is it worth it to you? Is that investment possible? Is that growth possible? Right. So when we look at a bookkeeper, you might not even be able to find a bookkeeper for $3,000 a year. So I've got some just different models in there to show you what that looks like. And is that realistic for you? Can you increase your prices? Can you lower other expenses? What do you need to do in order to just break even on that investment? Because it really is an investment. Now, some of you fine folks did the survey, and I appreciated that very much. And I wanted to add in a quick touch on payroll, which is its own beast, as we all know. But payroll that's unreliable hurts employee morale and tarnishes your reputation. That is for sure. If you are not using a payroll software, payroll can be really, really stressful. I recommend Google Forms for staff tracking with timestamps. So the reason why Google Forms might be a good way to do that if you're using Excel or whatnot is that it does have that timestamp right built into the function of the form. So, and also that employee can just put a little shortcut on their phone if they're out. We did this for the electricians. They were really not tech savvy at this time, and they were using paper worksheets, and it was so frustrating for the business owner. So we worked out this new process where they were going to do their digital worksheets, and their worksheets were going to be linked with their payroll, and we did everything through Google Forms, and they're still using that just 5 years later. So it really works for them. Email subject lines with consistency. By that, I mean getting into the habit, if you are sending out your pay stubs electronically, which by the way, you have to do, you have to provide a statement of earnings or pay stub. I would recommend putting a subject line like pay period 1 or pay period 2, January 2nd to that. Like, use something consistent so that your employees can get comfortable with how you're doing this and they can quickly find things, and then you also can as well. Another thing that I recommend, if you've got really good relations with your staff, which I'm hoping you do, have them review and approve their hours in writing. Make that part of the audit trail as well for you, where you can just say, hey, I'm prepping payroll. Here's what I've got for you. Is this approved? Is this approved by you? Right. And when they say, yep, that's right, or nope, I forgot my hours, right, then you've got an opportunity. Save that backup. Email communications, especially around payroll, print. And simple payroll software, that's a joke. There's not a lot of those out there. I've gone through a lot of payroll softwares. I am someone who I can't tolerate software that makes me angry, like makes me want to scream. We're actually building a payroll software right now. So my company has been using our own payroll software. It is like, I almost want to say stupid simple, because it really is. But there's not a lot of options out there right now for simple payroll. A lot of them are complicated. So it is one of those things where, like devil, sometimes if you're using a software, it's worth it to just stay and like really rely on their customer service to help you, or shop around knowing that that's going to be frustrating as well. One thing I did want to recommend, if you're not already registered for ROE Web, I would recommend registering for ROE Web. This allows you to produce records of employment online. Records of employment are really important, especially when staff are going on leaves, have to go to school for trades, maybe mat leaves, or shortage of work, and they need to apply for EI. You really want to keep that process tight. So register for ROE Web. It's easy to do. It's free to do. I have a link for you. And just recognize that source deductions, which are, the CPP, EI, and whatnot, the CRA views those as funds held in trust. That means that it's not a question of what you owe them. you do owe them. So unlike HST sales returns where you've got money that you've collected in input tax credits and they net out and then you owe the difference, source deductions are not like that. They are money that you, business owner, are holding in trust for the CRA, meaning don't mess with them on this. They will come after you aggressively. It is very, very important to pay your source deductions online. My resources page has all these links. I'm going to provide it to Jessica. She's going to send it along to you. I know we don't have a lot of time for questions, but I'm going to stop talking in 3, 2, 1. And actually not yet. My favorite quote from my mentor, who I honestly thought this was his quote. He always says it to me, shortcuts make for long delays. And I was like, his name's Mark. And I'm like, Mark, I love that quote. How'd you come up with that? He's like, it's from The Hobbit. I'm like, cool. So that is the end of my presentation. I hope that you have I hope you leave this feeling a little bit better. I know I talked very quickly, which is why you'll be able to watch it back. Okay, Jess.
Yeah, thank you so much. There's so much information in there. So if you have questions, please start populating them in using that little Q&A bubble on the bottom of your screen, and I will circle into Q&A in a second. When you leave this webinar, you will be redirected to a survey. Please take 2 minutes to give us some feedback on the presentation. It's both for WESC so that we can improve and develop better resources, and also for our presenters like Jen to be able to learn and improve their processes as well. So please make sure when you are redirected to the survey, you just go ahead and click your way through it. It will also be in the email that you will get when I end the webinar. Within 10 minutes, you should get an email with a link to the recording, and that survey will be there as well. So that's my quick ask before we go into Q&A. I'm popping over to Q&A now. Just a lovely comment that Jen, you were awesome.
Oh, thank you. This was my first webinar, folks. So yes.
Excellent job. Tons of information. The other question that we had early in the slides was if we're going to get a copy of the PowerPoint. You're not going to get a copy of the whole. Oh, do you want to send it? If Jeff's going to send it, we'll send it.
Sure. Why not?
Right. So we'll send the PowerPoint. You will get a copy of those links that were on the last page. So, and you'll also obviously have access to the recording. Just lots of great presentation, and congrats, so well done on your very first webinar.
Oh, thanks.
So we're wrapping 5 minutes early unless anyone wants to pop in a question. I'm just giving a second. But otherwise, we're all good. So thank you all for attending. Jem, did you have any last parting remarks that you wanted to give before we end our webinar for the day?
Yeah, I believe in you all. You can do it. You can do it, or you can outsource it. You have the power. I hope that you have more knowledge now than you did coming in and feel like you can do this, because I know bookkeeping and accounting is so stressful for business owners. And yeah, I'm here. I'm here to help. If you have a quick question or whatever, I'm always happy to help.
Yeah, there was tons of information there. I was taking little point form notes, and like I basically have a comment for every minute that you were talking. So
okay, I love that.
Yeah,
I have a lot
of information.
I have thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts. So
amazing. Well, thank you all so much for coming to this webinar. Please make sure you head over to wesc.ca/events to see what's coming up. We have some webinar and also an in-person workshop coming in the fall around market research and marketing strategies. We get asked for that topic again and again. So please make sure you do the survey. When you're done the survey, it will redirect you to the events page. Go in, make sure you RSVP to the next event. And that's a wrap on our bookkeeping webinar. So everyone have an amazing day. Go enjoy the sun. Hopefully you can sneak out of work early. Have an amazing day, everyone. Thanks, Jen.
thank you.